So we have a confirmation with a second opinion that he definitely has prostate cancer.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. I'm Reggie Hicks, producer of the documentary and outreach project, If You Are My Brothers, and also host of this podcast, the If You Are My Brothers podcast. We are definitely about prostate cancer conversations, and we want to welcome you and everyone watching on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and all the other platforms. And especially if you're listening after this live broadcast, you might be listening to our podcast, which drops every Tuesday. So we thank you. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, welcome. This is the final installment of our Prostate Cancer Awareness Month series. We've had really a very successful series, beginning with a panel of people, of brothers that coming together to talk about their prostate cancer journey. We've talked about disparities in prostate cancer and cancer in general. And we talked about a new and different kinds of prostate cancer treatments and some things that are on the horizon. And today we have a very special guest on tap. Now, he has shared his very unique prostate cancer story over the years, and he's been an integral part of the If You Are My Brothers project. As a matter of fact, he's often credited this project with saving his life, finding out that he had prostate cancer. Now, more about our special guest in a minute, but as always, we want to remind you that this podcast is not a substitute for your medical team. The opinions and medical topics we discuss are not to be a replacement for professional treatment. It is important that you always, I say this always, consult your healthcare provider. And just one more note, some content may be of a mature nature, so we ask that you always please listen accordingly. Remember, our subtitle for this series is Prostate Cancer Conversations. So we invite you to join us in the chat with your questions and comments. Don't be shy. This is real life. So become part of this community and like and share and subscribe as we go on this journey together. To learn more about this podcast and the If You Are My Brothers documentary and community engagement project, you can visit us, the website, at ifyouaremybrothers.org. Now, to our very special guest. And I guess if you haven't guessed by now, there's a lot of guests in that. Our guest for this episode is none other than yours truly. That's right. You know, we titled this episode Transparent, Honest, Necessary, Talking Prostate Cancer Out Loud. And what better way to get honest and transparent than with the person willing to really put everything on the table? And that's me. So we're going to do something a little different. I've asked our producer, Dani, who is usually in the background pulling his hair out because I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, or he's got guests coming in and out of the podcast. But I've asked him to join me on this episode. You know, over time, we've received a number of questions from you, the audience, and today, we'd like to answer some of them and hopefully cover topics that might have been on your mind. So at this point, I want to I'm going to ask Dani to bring himself in. You do exist. See, I told people like, I don't know about this Dani guy.
I'm here, I'm real, and I have feelings. Pleasure to be here, Reggie.
But before we get started, why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely, sure. My name is Dani Garcia Pozo. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Georgia. Go Dogs, of course.
Roof, roof, roof.
Roof, 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 roof. I have a degree in English, Entertainment, and Media Studies. I don't know if you can tell by my general disposition and way of being, but I have done theater for a great part of my life. And in doing so, have matriculated into the world of media and entertainment, of course. And it has been my pleasure to be the producer / editor / whatever Reggie needs me to be at any given moment for the If You Are My Brothers podcast. And it's such a pleasure to be on with you today, Reggie, our very special guest.
Thank you, Dani. And just so you know, Dani and I, we cut up all the time. So just know that that's going to be a part of the podcast because we do joke around a lot. But we are talking about something very serious. So, Dani, I'm going to let you handle this part of it. And I'm just going to be the person ready to take on these questions.
Absolutely. It's so strange to be on the other side of this now, but it is such a pleasure to be able to pick your brain about some of the questions that have been burning in not only our viewers' minds, but also in the minds of so many people who are yet to listen to this podcast. So, in doing so, I've gathered a few questions and I've divided them into two categories. First, I have some questions about your personal prostate cancer journey, and then I have some questions about the If You're My Brother's project at large. And if that's all right with you, I'll go ahead and begin with the former.
Okay. I'm ready. I think.
I believe. So, Reggie, first things first. Fred, via email, wants to know if you have any family history of prostate cancer. He was recently diagnosed and has found it difficult to get information from family members.
Yeah, Danny, I actually learned about prostate cancer history after I was diagnosed. And is it Fred? Yeah, Fred, I can tell you that particularly among Black men and our families, we don't really talk about it. I didn't know anything. I think there were a couple of people in my family that had prostate cancer kind of after the fact. After I was diagnosed, my brother was diagnosed. So there were some family members, a cousin here that actually learned about what he needed to do as far as his PSA because of this project. And his wife really got on him and found out that he had prostate cancer as well. But going back, Dad, as far as I know, didn't have it. He may have. He lived to be in his 80s. And a lot of times they say if you live that long, you probably have it, but you're not going to die from it. But he never talked about having any issues. I think the main thing, and I will say this too, and I think I mentioned this before, Ralph, who talk about is the subject of the prostate cancer documentary. I remember, there was we went to a family reunion and he had a very difficult time trying to talk about prostate cancer. He had been diagnosed and he was trying to get the word out and he got resistance from his family. So what he did was he just went to individual members of his family and kind of talked about what he was going through. And I think that's the key. You just have to talk to people, let them know. I think if you let them know what you're going through, what you're going to find is you may be able to uncover the history. Now, for you, it may be that it's all well and good. Well, I wish I had known that before, but what it will do is help generations to come. My son now knows that that's something that he has to look out for. And his children, his sons, hopefully down the road, will look out for it as well. So this is where it begins. And just as you start talking about it, don't be afraid to talk. Go ahead and talk in your family about what's happening. And then you'll start getting information and then making sure that that information kind of stays in the family itself. So it may have to start with you, Fred, but you can do it.
It's all about community and communication within that community, present and future. Now, another question that we have from our viewers, Reggie, is Vincent writes, I had my prostate removed over 5 years ago, and my PSA was undetectable until now. It's not high, but I'm starting to worry about what's going on. I know you had a similar experience. What did you do to figure out what to do next?
First thing I did was pray, because I tell you, it was a little unsettling. I think I will say, first and foremost, it's good that you know there's something going on. A lot of times you go through your treatment, you're undetectable. It is so important to get your PSA. And look, there have been conversations about, well, PSA doesn't necessarily mean you have cancer. It doesn't. I want to really make sure that you understand that, but it does let you know that something is going on. If your prostate has been removed, you really should not have anything making PSA. So that means there's some molecules or something out there, right, that's starting to manifest itself. Maybe it's cancer, maybe it's not. But I think the main thing is to work with your healthcare professional, your urologist, to kind of track it, to see how it goes. For me, I just remember my PSA being 0.14. And that was weird because it's always been like 0.001 or something like that. And I was like, 0.14, that's not high. And my urologist said, well, watch it. and started gradually to go up, and then to 0.25, which is basically, I went to the internet, which, that's the first thing. That's probably a problem for most of us, right? Went to the internet, Dani. I tell you, I looked and it says 0.25. If it gets that high, it means that there's a biochemical reoccurrence. I mentioned this on the show before. And I was like, biochemical reoccurrence. That doesn't sound too bad. But basically, that's a kind of fancy way of saying, your prostate cancer may be back. So we just watched it, and then it went up to 2.46. And then we knew that there was something going on. I will say this, though. I underwent treatment, but I had what's called a PSMA scan, which is a new scan that wasn't available when I was first diagnosed, that basically will bond with any PSA molecule, I guess, and it kind of shows if there's anything going on anywhere in your body, and as opposed to a full bone scan, which is what we used to take. This kind of says if there's something going on. There was nothing. It was clear, so nothing had metastasized, which was good. But don't be afraid. I think the key is that that something's going on, track it. And just like your first diagnosis, this one the prognosis is very, very good, catching it before it starts to metastasize or anything like that. So it's good that you know your numbers. Just keep knowing it. Don't be afraid. And don't shy away from it either. That's the key. Don't say it'll go away. I don't want to know, because I've been there. I know. So, all right, Dani, I'm trying to be concise, but you know me.
I'll stop you if you get too long. Don't worry. But these are great answers, Reggie. And it really is important, like from all the guests that we've had on this podcast, from all the people that I have heard you talk to, it really is important to just keep knowing your number, keep knowing what's going on with you, because ultimately that's the name of the game, is knowledge. But to follow up to that, we have another question. This one comes from Shante. Shante reaches out and she says, my husband refuses to check on his PSA or even bother with any kind of prostate checkup, even though his brother and father both had prostate cancer. How can I persuade him to get checked?
Don't let him watch any football. No, I'm just kidding. That's a good question. That's probably one of the most difficult, I think. It's like someone who's a drug addict, right? I mean, they always say that you really can't get clean until you want to get clean, no matter how much your family and your friends and all the interventions that go on. It has to be inside. I think, though, Shante, that if you just talk to him about the importance and the fact that you don't want him to leave here, I think men have to understand that, if we've been saying throughout this series, particularly during Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, that this is not anything to play with. This is still cancer. And a lot of times we get kind of caught up in, it's 95% treatable and it's not a big deal. It's slow growing. But I have witnessed a number of close friends, including Ralph Franklin, who was a part of this documentary, who succumbed to the disease. And we also know some famous people and infamous people, from OJ to Martin Luther King's son, Dexter, who passed from prostate cancer. And so I would just say to him, is it important for you to be here for me, for the family, for the future family? I don't know your age or whatever, but your grandchildren, how important it is, and just kind of be about that. And I think him maybe listening to one of our episodes, because this is a conversation. That's why we do this, is so that we're not talking to you, we're not preaching to you, we're not throwing out a lot of medical jargon. It's just about conversation. So maybe there's something that he might want to watch or listen to. Maybe if you just get him to do that, that might help. But I think really talking to him, don't guilt trip him, because it's not about that. This is serious. People do unfortunately die from this disease. So I think just letting him know you want him to be around, and that if he doesn't take care of this or track it or know, because it may not be anything, but the family history and everything is so important, that he at least gets the PSA, which is just a simple blood test. Whatever he does for his blood work, for maybe his physical, just add the PSA and know what it is and take it from there.
Now, A follow-up to that in a slightly different topic. This one is from Raymond. Raymond wants to know.
Ray.
Ray wants to know how you manage active surveillance. He writes, "It's hard for me to go about my daily life and routine knowing that I have cancer. I feel compelled to do something now. Did you go through this? And what kept your sanity through it all?"
Wow. That's pretty good, Raymond. Yeah, I did go through it. Even though for me, I think having followed Ralph around, having seen someone with 100 PSA and a very active prostate cancer that was fast growing, aggressive, and seeing his strength and courage, and also seeing the different treatments and stuff that, his medical team were working to keep this thing under control. And for the most part, it was for 6 years when his original prognosis was 18 months. That kind of helped soothe things a bit, I thought. But I will tell you, once I was diagnosed, knowing that it was slow growing, knowing that I had time for surveillance to a degree, I still really wanted to rush and get something done. And I think it was just divine intervention, Lord saying, this is not what you need to do. You need to go and kind of, look at the different treatments. This is also going to help other people, because this will be a part of the documentary, because I rushed to do something and it fell through because I didn't have health insurance. So it kind of allowed me time to say, well, let me look at proton therapy. Let me look at brachytherapy. Let me look at prostacision. Let me look at having it removed, because that was not at the top of my list. So it gave me an opportunity to look around. But I tell you, the one thing that helped was monitoring the PSA. And I had 3 biopsies. So my medical team was always on top of it. And as long as it's in the prostate, you're doing good. They kind of know if it's aggressive. Most prostate cancers are slow growing. Some will even say there's been some different information out there from the American Cancer Society and other places saying that sometimes we do jump to getting treatment, and maybe watchful waiting or active surveillance, as it's called now, is kind of the way to go. As a matter of fact, Dani, I saw somewhere just in research how active surveillance has now surpassed, as far as not treatment options necessarily, but more men are opting for that than, say, the seeds or some other, or radiation treatment, which was actually the number one treatment. But now it's kind of like, active surveillance is like 59%. So more men are doing it. And with the understanding that, it's slow growing and we can actively surveil, I guess. But I will say this, it doesn't mean walking away. It doesn't mean forgetting that you have cancer. It just means that you understand what surveillance is about, and that is making sure and checking. That gave me comfort, because if the biopsy, or and seeing my PSA gradually go up, knowing that it wasn't metastasized or anything like that, that gave me the opportunity. I think I spent about almost a year in active surveillance, which allowed me also to review and talk about and finally get health insurance, and being able to choose the treatment that I thought was right for me. So the inclination, I know at first, is to jump at the first train coming, but understand too, there's a lot of different treatments available, a lot of new treatments out there. And if active surveillance is what your medical team is telling you that's available to you, I would say take it, just to use that time to determine what's going to be the best treatment for you. Call people, watch podcasts and like this one, just to kind of get that information, and pray. I tell you, that was the other thing that helped me, tremendously.
Reggie, we have a question here now about someone in a later step of prostate cancer treatment. And this is coming from James. James says that he is recovering from recent prostate surgery and learned about the podcast through a friend who recommended that he listen to it. He's worried about what to expect and when to expect it. Did you anticipate your post-surgery outcomes? Were you surprised?
Oh, it's a great question, James. I think I was. Yeah, I think, given where I was before the operation and kind of where I ended up, I was a little surprised. But I will say that it is the kind of thing where everybody's different. I talk to guys that have, no issues with ED, no issues with incontinence. I have some that have minimal issues, depending on their treatment. For me, of course, I opted to have it removed. So yeah, I was a little surprised that I didn't kind of bounce back the way I thought I would bounce back, which, that was a whole different part of, it's in the documentary too, about what what that looked like, right? I mean, it's like, okay, I have ED now. I never had experienced that before. How do I get around that? How do I make this better? What do I do? And I went to a whole lot of different things. Now, there are a lot of treatments out there, and I hear them on the radio all the time and on TV and those kinds of things. We're going to do a show about that, by the way, Dani. I want to do a show about all of the ED treatments, what really works. But yeah, I was a little surprised. But what I think the outcome for me was that what I was pleasantly surprised about was that the cancer was gone. So that, I can tell you, let me tell you right now, James, that the one thing that you will be, I won't say on edge about, but that you will be focused more on anything else outside of ED and content, whatever it is that's going on with your post-op. The one thing that you're going to be really concerned about is that first PSA. And what does it tell you? What does it say? Where are you? And to hear that it's undetectable is like an exhale. All that other stuff, I'm telling you, you will not even think about. Once you hear that your PSA is undetectable, you'd be like, whew, you just give that exhale. And Ralph and I used to talk about that all the time, about what really is important. And definitely knowing that the cancer is under control or gone, that's going to supersede everything. So don't worry too much about that. Do your Kegel exercises, do the things that they're telling you to do post-op wise. If you have issues, I will say this, and I've said this on other podcasts, that make sure that your doctor, your urologist, understands the issues if you have any, and that they have some practical and maybe even some innovative treatments. Some people, some urologists are surgeons. That's what they do. They take your prostate out, they make sure you're good, and they move on to the next, surgery or whatever. So find somebody that specializes in what your needs are, and don't necessarily feel like you have to be loyal or to a particular doctor or firm, or practice or anything like that. So that's key as well.
So it can be very case to case as to what to expect.
Yeah, and I would say as you heal up, don't read anything into that. Anticipate the best, but don't think that things aren't going to get better. I will tell you, I talked to a guy, never forget, we went out to lunch and he had his prostate removed. He had ED problems, and he said that one day he woke up and he didn't have the problem anymore. He was like, just boom, it was back. And he was like, oh, it was like a miracle. So not a miracle, but it takes time to heal. And so I just said to him, wow, that's just great. So we're all different. Don't anticipate when you're healing up now, things are not going to, things got to kind of get back right. Even controlling, your continence, all of that has to kind of, you have to heal. So don't be too discouraged. Just focus on getting better. And don't listen to other people that say it's going to be this or it's going to be that. Nobody knows what it's going to be. You will know in time, but just focus on healing. That's the key.
Well, Reggie, on the topic of incontinence, I have one final question from a viewer for you. This one comes from Andre. Andre simply wants to know, what's up with the pad? There are so many options out there, and someone told him that if he starts using a pad for incontinence, he'll become psychologically dependent. Now, what do you think of that?
Somebody told me that too. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's something we need to address on a future episode. I need one. I've kind of improvised size and thickness and things like that. I think, and then I've been seeing online social media, there's like underwear now that's discreet, but like it's great. It's not like a Depends or anything like that. That's a show we need to do too, because I'm curious as to, does this stuff really work? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been without. Sometimes I forget to put a pad on, and I will say maybe, but because of the nature of incontinence, in other words, it's not just about whether you kind of wait to go and then you go at the last minute. We all kind of experience that, but it's kind of like if you move a certain way, if you cough, if you laugh. I mean, there could be just a dribble, then that happens, and so you do want some protection. I wear one that was really, really thin prior to my treatment for my biochemical reoccurrence, my proton radiation treatment. I went to a larger pad. I don't think I really need one because they said my incontinence may get worse, but it really hadn't. So, but I think it gives you some security. I mean, we'll have to figure that out. Some people say it is. Doc told me if you wear it too much, you're dependent on it. So don't wear it. So then I don't know. But I just know this, that if I move a certain way or cough or something or laugh, then I may need it. So wear it if you feel like you need it. Try not wearing it for a couple of days and see how that works for you. I just don't be like me, because I had to go to a meeting after not having one on and forgetting, and that was not a nice, pretty sight. But that's a whole nother story.
Well, that aside, we'll save that for another very special episode of If You're My Brothers.
Yes, we'll have a pad episode.
Naturally. We'll also have to do in that same episode an unboxing and review of the discreet underwear.
Right. We could do a haul. What do they call it? A haul? Like
Exactly. We'll do a haul. Exactly. We'll get a sponsorship. We'll do a haul.
Yeah, pad haul. I don't know.
Exactly. It'll be great. It'll be innovative and informative. But that being said, speaking of future of the podcast and the podcast in general,
I love the segue, by the way, Dani. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you so much. It's all off the dome, Reggie. But that being said, I wanted to go ahead and shift gears a bit and talk about the podcast in general, about the project, and about the general details, the future, etc., of the project and so forth. So I wanted to begin with one question that's certainly been on my mind, and I'm sure that's been on a lot of our viewers' minds, which is about the origins of the podcast. So, Reggie, what about Ralph's story resonated with you? What about him as a person inspired you to document his journey?
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. I tell the story, and it's in the trailer. It's on the website about Ralph just putting out what had happened to him. That's how we even came up with If You Are My Brothers, because that is in his email, his original email, many, many years ago, over 10 years ago, to the fraternity, saying that, if you're my brothers, you'll share this information, because he was concerned if it happened to him as a lawyer and being surprised and just totally out of left field, it could happen to anybody. That really resonated with me when he told me, when he sent that out, because I had no clue. I didn't know what a PSA was either, to be honest with you. I knew it was something on my blood work, but because it was always normal, no one ever explained that to me. And as we talked about the question before, I had no family history. I didn't know anything about my family history and prostate cancer. So I just felt compelled. I always say that, again, divine intervention. I think it was just the Holy Spirit saying, this is something that you need to work with Ralph to get the word out. And I just asked him. But he tells a story too, that he always thought when I wanted to meet with him, we met at Panera Bread. When I asked about meeting him, he thought I wanted free legal advice. So he came kind of prepared, like, okay, here we go. Somebody wants some legal advice. But the minute I asked him about chronicling his story, he did not hesitate. And yeah, I think it was his honesty, his transparency, and the fact that I didn't know what it was, and it hit me like that. It probably needed to hit more people than just those in the fraternity.
Clearly, Ralph was a very important, impactful person in your life, and that impact can't be understated at all. Well, that being said, insofar as now the podcast is here, the project is here, now that's begun, how do you see the documentary and outreach project expanding into the future? And if you could expand it in any way, how would you? Resources notwithstanding, of course.
Yeah. Well, I could tell you, Dani, and for those that are watching and listening, this has been a long time coming. The original project was all about, before podcasting was even a thing, I had written down in a proposal to have a podcast around this. I felt like I should have done more a lot sooner, but again, this has always been sort of I won't say hobby, but it was just something that I've been passionate about. But also, it has taken so long to get to this point. And just because I had bills to pay, and so I was working full time and thinking that, okay, I can do this on the side. And we go to an event here, we do something with some other folk, we partner, and just trying to get the documentary done, and got to a point where it was sort of outdated. And then we got to, okay, so now we got to bring this thing up to date. I came to realize as I was getting into kind of my pre-retirement years that the only way this was going to happen is if I dedicated 100% of my time to this, to making this happen. This is so much a part of Ralph's legacy. It's a part of his wife Joyce's legacy, who passed away sometime after he did. And so, I've just committed, and we've done more in the last 3 or 4 months than I've done in the last 4 or 5 years, just because being able to dedicate the time to get it done. And because time is limited, my time is limited, everybody's time is limited. This is something that I really felt I needed to do. And also to build a project, a nonprofit entity around this project was important. So now we're organized, and now we can build the foundation on what was already there. The pillars were there. Now we're laying the foundation, and hopefully we can kind of build a house. And the other part to this is also partnerships. I think that's the key too. This is such a unique project in that my finding out I had prostate cancer while doing this thing, and being a survivor myself, and twice, I'm still going through it, and being in media and also fundraising and that kind of thing, it sort of brought it all together. And I think that this is the time, for such a time as this, because the statistics are still the same. There are still hundreds of thousands of men being diagnosed every year. There's still 37,000 men that die from this. So, it's still pretty prevalent, even though there's so many things that have happened over the years and so many innovations of treatment and stuff like that. And also awareness, because brothers are finally, I think, getting the message that we need to go ahead and do something about this. But we're still where we are. I'm just blessed that I'm able to do this and move this along. I think that answered your question, didn't it? I had to get that off my chest.
No, for sure. It's important. But that being said, then, for what I understand, that the future of this project looks like more of this, something that, as you said, you have not been able to do it to the degree that you've wanted to in the past few years. The future of it continues to look like getting the word out through this podcast, through other components of the documentary and outreach project, and making sure that community is built, that with awareness, hopefully, the numbers end up changing. So is that my understanding of that right? Is that how the future is shaping up to look for this project?
Yeah, I think the key is, with the documentary, the whole idea was always about having the outreach around the documentary, having hospitals and fraternities and sororities and other groups to use this as sort of outreach for their constituents and their members, and to watch it and then have conversations around it. Because at the end of the day, it's still a unique story. There's tons of great organizations out there doing this kind of work that's doing research. And we're so fortunate that there's so many organizations out there, even though, the current landscape, for research and stuff is a little hindered these days, but this is just a small part. But I think it's the conversations through the podcast. I think it's the real life situation through the documentary, where, say, the statistics of 1 out of 6 or 1 out of 5 men will be diagnosed in their lifetime. I think it's more like 1 out of 4, but anyway. And to see it happen in real life, with me following Ralph and then my going through it, and this journey has been a journey. I think that that's unique, and hopefully will resonate with men and their families. And it's just about at the end of the day, Dani, it's really what we talk about. It's more than health awareness, it's health action. And if men who watch this, listen to this podcast, if the only thing they do is just say, okay, I'm going to know what my PSA is, and I'm just going to track it just in case something gets out of whack. If you do that, that to me, we've reached a goal. The other part of that is also taking away any mystery, any anxiety, to understand that so many men have gone through this, and so many men, I think 3 million or so, are still, surviving prostate cancer. So, that's the other part of it. But the conversational part is key. So, I'm not trying to preach. Like I said, I'm not trying to throw a lot of doctors and jargon at you, though we will have doctors on the podcast. But the podcast is a great way to get the word out as well.
Absolutely. And, I can attest, as one life you've touched, I know that for certain that when I come of age, as it were, I will certainly have my PSA checked. And if I don't, then Reggie, you have full permission to hunt me down and to shake me until I do so. But related to the previous question, Reggie, and I think you answered this to a degree already, but I'd want to hear some more thoughts about this. If you could have changed one thing about the way in which you started this project, and again, you said that you started this project many years ago, what would it have been? How would you have changed it if you could have the chance to start all over again, as it were?
Yeah, I think if the big thing is just if I had done this like full time, just stepped out on faith and said, this is important and I'm just going to do it, and also build an organization around it. I think having a nonprofit entity is all part of it. Yeah, that would have been, that's the main thing that kind of always kind of gnaws at me. But here's the thing. I mean, it's still needed even today. What we're doing is important. So, but again, I just feel like, hey, I know there's some lives that have been touched, including my own. If not for Ralph and doing these things, who knows what, or if I had paid any attention to PSA, right? Because I did eventually have prostate cancer. So I tell people all the time that the project saved my life and some others that have been touched by this. But again, had we done this earlier, how many other lives would have been touched? So that's always kind of gnawing at me a little bit. But so that's one of the regrets I have, is just knowing how important it is and just stepping out. And the other part too, I think, is Ralph and his wife Joyce not really being able to see how their legacy has affected and continue to affect other people in a positive way. So that's kind of, like I say, retrospect, but we move forward. That's the key.
We move forward. We have to. What's done is done. We must keep going forward. And it's one incredible legacy that you're keeping up, Reggie. But with that being said, getting to a more serious place, I want to ask a serious question, which is more of a personal one. What has been your most challenging moment in your journey with prostate cancer, related to this podcast or otherwise?
The biggest challenge, I don't know. It's been a number of them. I think from a organizational, and just like anything else, funding is always an issue. Funding is always a challenge to continue, doing this work and building on it, and also developing partnerships, I think, is key. The other thing probably is just life, evolving and not getting in the way, but, it's just like other things going on, and trying to juggle all these balls and make it, keep everything in the air. While, by the way, you're going through treatment, while you're going through being diagnosed again with a biochemical reoccurrence. And that was an eye-opener for me. Not a challenge. It was, I think that was the wake-up call. It's like, okay, don't play around with this. Let's go ahead and make this thing happen. Let's get to work, and let's do this project and build it and partner with other organizations. That's the hope, is being able to partner with other organizations to take this work and expand it even further. So yeah, it was a challenge in the sense that it kind of hit me in the face, like, okay, I'm just cruising along. Yeah, I'll get to this. I got this, but that kind of told me, look, every day is a gift. And if you're going to get this done and make a difference, you need to do it now. So I think in a way, this reoccurrence was, I won't say a good thing, but there was some good to come out of it, definitely.
Silver lining, as it were. But on that more positive era thinking, I want to ask you now, on the reverse side, what has been the most rewarding outcome that you've witnessed as a result of this project? What has been something that has been very uplifting to you to know that was a result of this?
Well, I think when you have people who have, men in particular, that have done some things, that have gone out and, said, hey, I know my PSA now, or, having people close to me who have been diagnosed. Now, that's not a good thing, but it's a good thing that they went and got diagnosed early. So that to me has been pretty rewarding, in the sense that, making a difference. And I don't know, we don't know how many other people will watch and see and we connected with over the years that have really decided to do something. I do know, I think one of the rewarding things is that when someone like in my fraternity or somebody I know, we had Eric on, they're diagnosed or is a possibility of prostate cancer, that they kind of reach out to me knowing that I've been doing this. And that's rewarding, just to be able to help people and men and families kind of get through this. So that's been probably the most rewarding part of it. And I get to do the podcast, which is pretty fun, and to work with young folk like you, Dani. That's been very rewarding. And to work with interns from my alma mater, University of Georgia, go Dogs. So all of the other things, kind of residual things around this, have been rewarding as well. Yeah, and it's keeping me sharp. It's keeping me innovative and excited and relevant. That's my word. That's the old people's word. Relevant. When you start getting old, you want to be, always remember, be relevant.
Exactly. You can find our TikTok if you all would like after the program. But that being said, Reggie, me as a young folk, a folk of different ages and places and origins, we've had a lot of different guests on the show. But I wanted to ask you a sort of a hypothetical question. Who is someone you would want to talk to on this podcast if you could choose from anyone in the world, and why?
Mm. Oh, wow. We talked about one person in particular, but you're supposed to be working on it. It's just President Biden.
I'm getting my connections, Reggie.
Folks like Al Roker, who has been very transparent about his journey. I think it'd be fun to talk to. I don't know. Just anyone who is willing to kind of tell their story. I think for me, it's always interesting how people found out, and kind of what was their first inclination when they heard the C word, and just seeing people who are just about like, I need to do something. I think we all kind of feel that way when you're, some people do, some people like, really into their shell and I don't want anybody to know. But then there are other people like, I really want to get the word out. So for me, it's just anybody that just wants to talk about this thing and wants to share so that other men feel okay. The ones that want to stay in their shell feel like it's okay to talk, or it's okay to listen. Hey, just join the conversation, just listen. So we can get through this together. So, yeah, those are two people that I've thought about. We've talked about. I'm sure there's some others on my list. To think about that.
Every day in my free time, I'm calling Joe Biden and asking him, begging for an interview.
Yeah. Well, don't call too much. You don't want the Secret Service coming to your house. But anyway.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I pray for him. I hope he has a very aggressive form. So, we're just keeping him in prayer.
Hope everyone out there with foreign prostate cancer is doing well. Hopefully we can help touch them with this project. But that being said, that brings me to my next question. How has making this project helped you on your journey with prostate cancer?
I think I understand more about, obviously, the disease, but it's not just about the treatments. There's so many things out there. There's so much innovation and aggressive forms of prostate cancer. There's hormone therapy. There are things that we had Dr. Gatton be on to talk about, the things that they're doing down there in Tampa. So for me, I just think that knowing the ins and outs and some of the areas, the innovations and stuff, that's good. But also just the resilience of people has really helped me. Folk that have just gone through this thing and are so positive. And then the ones that we remember that unfortunately have been taken by this disease. But I've learned that, having people around you, having people you can talk to, having faith, it has made me stronger in everything else, right? Going out to do this full time, and that's a whole different thing. So yeah, I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned not to be scared of this, even after my reoccurrence. I was not happy. I said, okay, what can I do again that's positive? And it was a wake up call for me to really work on doing this. That's why we're doing this podcast right now. That's why we've had this. That's why you're here. So it's kind of motivated me, believe it or not, to make this work and to get the word out. So I guess I answered the question,
Yeah, I know you did.
I know my wife's like, she's listening going, oh, he's rambling again. I know, but that's what boomers do. We just ramble. And besides, you get to edit this on the audio side. So, you can take a lot of this out and make it more succinct.
I can make you say whatever I want.
This is probably going to be the hardest podcast for you to edit.
No, these are great answers, Reggie. And I have one last question for you. And don't be afraid to ramble. Don't be afraid to speak your mind and your beautiful truth. Reggie, what is one thing you want folks at home to know and understand about prostate cancer? If there's one thing they have to walk away with after listening to this today, what would you want it to be?
Well, I think one is, as Anita always says, my wife says, two things: life over libido, knowing that you want to be here for your family. Well, maybe three things. The other thing is knowing that health awareness is one thing, health action is the next step. So I think doing something, hearing all of this, seeing all of this, don't let it pass. Just do something, even if it's just knowing your PSA. And we're kind of pushing that as a starting point, because that's where everything kind of happens. So life over libido, health action, know your PSA. And I think the other thing too, Dani, is just talking to people, talking to your family, to your loved ones, being open about it. It's important because you don't want to go through this. It's hard going through this alone. And I know there's some people that don't have people to talk to. So hopefully you can talk to us, hopefully you reach out to me or go to our website, leave us an email like some of the other folks we've answered questions to tonight. So that's the other thing, I think. Don't be afraid to talk about it. And don't be afraid to listen about it, like on this podcast.
There you go. Reggie, thank you so much for your time. And it is very seldom that I put the interviewer, not the interviewee, in the backstage, but that's what I will be doing. I'll be bidding you farewell so that you may give your farewell spiel. But thank you so much for your time and for your very insightful responses to the questions. And thank you for being, of course, our very special guest today.
Thank you, Dani. Now, go to the green room. No,
go, producer boy, back to your hole.
No, you did an excellent job. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Take it away, Reggie.
Okay, Dani. Yeah, like I said, we do kid around, but Dani, thank you for being in front of the camera and the microphone for our final show of this Prostate Cancer Awareness Month series. You did a great job, great questions. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, but thank you so much. And thank you for all you do every episode. And thanks to you, our followers, for sending in the questions. Very, very insightful, and hopefully will help other people as they go through their prostate cancer journey, not just men, but families as well. And I hope we were able to give you some insight in that. We're also here to help some folks and who've had some similar questions on their minds. So if you heard something, you're listening to podcasts, maybe you've thought about this question and it was answered. We'll do this from time to time as well. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we are taking this journey together. So if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a loved one, like it, subscribe, You can always connect to us via email, social media, and even, I don't like to call it, but snail mail, United States Postal Service. Yeah, USPS. Our address is on the website, as well as past episodes that you can listen to. They're all archived there. And that's at ifyouaremybrothers.org. Again, it's ifyouaremybrothers.org. You can also sign up for our e-newsletter, which I think is coming out this weekend. So you can be a part of our If You Are My Brothers community. Remember, we are a nonprofit 501c project dedicated to prostate cancer awareness and health action. And we hope you will support us in what we do. It's so important. We're at a goal of $25,000 for the month of September. We're a little over halfway there, at about $11,000 to go. So you still have some time to make your contribution. So if you're listening to our podcast, the link will be in the show notes. Video episodes are on our YouTube channel. We want to remind you this episode is sponsored by the Creators Nature Blend. Now, this is an organization. They have pure, natural, herbal serums, tinctures, I think I got that right, oils and tonics, and handcrafted with homegrown, wild-crafted ingredients. These folk actually, Melissa and her husband, they actually have a farm, and they have their garden, and this is like serious farm to table, folks, things that can really help you with diabetes and even hair growth and other things. So we really appreciate their support of the podcast. You can learn more about them at the creatorsnatureblend.com. The creatorsnatureblend.com. And special thanks to our producer, Dani Garcia Pozo, and to Zach Reynolds at Borkhouse Productions for our opening. Thank you, Zach, for that. And remember, again, this is a podcast. It's not a replacement for medical advice. Always talk to your healthcare provider about your health. That is important. Join us for our next episode on Thursday, October 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern. We will be putting out on social media and all of our on the website and everything, the topic and the guest for that particular episode. So stay tuned. If You Are My Brothers is a project of Straight Street Media. You can learn more about Straight Street Media at straightstreetmedia.org. I know it's a mouthful. And you can learn about not just If You Are My Brothers, but the other projects that Straight Street is working on. So until next time, just want to say, if you are my brothers, you will share this message. We thank you for tuning in, for listening, and hopefully taking health action. So take care and stay healthy. Peace.